And if everybody is ready, I'd like to call the August 24th meeting of the Beagle County Capital Improvement Board of Managers to order. And I'd like Mayor Bennett to introduce our new member, and we'll get her sworn in.
Okay, well, Bernice Hellman is here today. Appointed her to fill the previous position of Steve Witt. You know, Bernice is very involved in the community. She's involved at state level in a variety of things, all kind of related. A lot of it related to what we do here as a community in a lot of different ways. And so I thought she'd be a great fit, and would like all of you to welcome her to the board today and for her first meeting. And you know, there's been a lot going on here. You'll easily catch up, but it's been a very, it's a great board, and we've accomplished a lot, and we have many more things to come. So we're excited to have you be a part of our team.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mayor. If the auditor now will swear the new member in.
All right, if you'll repeat after me, I state your name,
I, Bernice Hellman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully execute and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully execute and impartially discharge
all of my duties
all of my duties
as a member of the Beagle County Capital Improvement Board of Managers,
as a member of the Beagle County Capital Improvement Board of Managers,
according to law and the best of my ability,
according to law and the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you for joining us, Bernice. And Mr. Bramble, if you'll call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Conley,
Present.
Ms. Craigville,
Present.
Marvel,
Here.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Here.
Mr. Bennett,
Here.
Ms. Hellman,
Here.
and Dave Patterson.
Here. Item number 3 under our agenda was the call on the roll. Number 4 is, are there any additions or revisions to today's agenda? Hearing none, I'll move on to item number 5, which is an announcement of committee assignments by me, and the only committee assignment that we have open would be Steve's position on the museum committee. So Terry Conley is the chair of the committee, Chris, Mayor Bennett, and now you, Bernice. All right, number 6, approval of the July the 27th, 2022 minutes. Did everyone receive a copy, email, and had a chance to review it?
Make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Under old business, item number 7.1, an update on the Convention Center Management, Spectre Venue Management, Oak Valley Group.
You agree.
Oak Group. All right, Tennille.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're reporting on July, and July was a slow month for us, which is really kind of uncommon, it is common in a new facility during the middle of the summer. You get a lot of family vacations and that, so there's a little less meetings and conventions that are typically booked during that time frame. So during the month of July, we hosted 5 events and 2 tastings. These events accounted for 5 total days, and total attendance was only 338 people, and we generated approximately $11,000 in revenue. Parking revenue was only $352. Here's a list of the July events that we did. We had the ISU Summer Honors Networking Meeting, which was just a small 35-person meeting. Terre Haute North had their 40th class reunion, which was 150 people. Evening function, Art Spaces farewell reception for Mary Kramer. She just retired and had about 65 attendees. They did a really nice reception in the pre-function space downstairs. And First Firecraft's reunion had about a 100-person dinner with bars, just a nice little get together for them. And then we had some food. We had a food tasting and a wedding tasting. Chamber of Commerce had a food tasting and as well as a wedding did. Just some basic stats. This just kind of shows where we were in terms of number of events by type, attendance by type, gross revenue by event type. Special events had the most revenue for this month. It's been meetings the past couple months. And then as we start getting out, we'll start comparing month to month. Right now it's not a real good comparison, so we'll start adding some more graphs in here as we get going further along. For employment, I am in the process of narrowing down our director of food and beverage position and our second event manager. I'm going through our final interviews, and my hope is that by this Friday I'll be making offers to candidates for those positions. I've been very picky about these are key positions, and so I want to make sure we've got the right people and the folks that will mesh nicely with the staff that we've built already. And then what we will continue to hire are part-time line cooks, dishwashers, banquet servers, and operations crew. And I will tell you that part-time workers it's been a challenge for us. We use one of the local staffing agencies. We actually use a couple of them, but one of them that we've had a lot of success with. This past week we reached out, to schedule our temps for this week. We use a lot of college students. They're all back in school. They have football, they've got other sports and things like that, so we're really kind of struggling finding those part-time workers. So we have flyers that are going to the fraternal organizations, some of the churches, reaching out to a couple nonprofits that have like some youth that they can use as service workers and things like that. So we're really trying to reach out and find whatever part-time folks we can. And our part-time roster really consists of folks that are available all different hours of the day, because we do morning breakfast for some groups, we might have things in the afternoons, and then we've got nights and weekends, and it's event driven, so it's not always gonna be the same thing, the same time frames every week, but as long as we know that, hey, we have some people that can work this shift, we can work this shift, and we can utilize different staff at different times. So something that we'll continue to work on, but I know it's an issue with, it's kind of an ongoing issue with many businesses right now. So if you do know anyone looking for part-time work, please send them our way. Food and beverage, due to our slower events, we had more attention that was able to go to menu costing, price comparison between vendors. What we've done is go through our menus, reach out to several of the vendors that we use until we basically broke down our menus, with how much chicken we use, how much beef, things like that, so that they can come back and give us a lot of pricing so that we can see, okay, which vendors do we need to buy certain products from so that we can get the best pricing and who has the best products for us. We've been working on a lot of production sheets for the kitchen so that when our line cooks are helping prepare meals, they know what the recipe is, they know exactly what they need to be pulling so that each recipe is the same every time when they create it. And then, our part-time crew that we have in the kitchen, we've got a select few part-time individuals that are in there that they've been here for a little while now, and they're getting stronger every day, starting to understand how the kitchen works and how it operates, and we've got a really strong kitchen staff. So we're really happy with that. Operations, we usually use radios in the building to communicate rather than cell phones. Those have been back ordered now until September, October. It's related to the chip issue. So we're really hoping that we'll get those soon. That will make life easier for us when we have really large events. The Larry Bird Museum construction started earlier in the month, and Garmon has done a really nice job of working around the events that we have scheduled. So Mark Merrill basically reaches out to me every week, and I give him a list of, here's all the events we have. We've got this group from this time to this time, and then his workers come in after. So it's been really great to have them work around the schedule that we have in place. We did a 3-hour training with our staff the end of July. We did an emergency preparedness. So we went over what to do in case of inclement weather, fire, flood, and then we did active shooter training. We had the Vigo County Sheriff's Office came in and performed that training with our staff so that they would know, you know, what to do in case of an emergency like that. They actually did a real life scenario. Everybody dispersed through the buildings like in our normal working positions, and we could hear, they went through the building and shot blanks, and we could hear what that actually sounds like. We hear a lot of noise in the building all day long when they're moving tables and chairs and things like that. So this was a good differentiation for our staff to understand what a live weapon in the building would actually sound like, and, you know, when to take that seriously. So it was a really, really good training that they did with us. We were all very impressed with it. We had some more HVAC issues in the kitchen last month. We had a loose power cable on one of the units on the rooftop. So B&S Plumbing came in and changed out that power supply. Then we had a sprinkler head replaced in ballroom B. And then we're continuing to monitor the irrigation. We continue to run into like little leaks and things like that. So we're just kind of watching that. And Brady has been staying on top of Lynn Brothers, who is taking care of that. On July 26th, we had an issue in the kitchen where chef came in, there was an alarm going off. It was part of the hood system. So we had a challenge getting the alarm shut off. There was no power to the whole island in there. Luckily, we didn't have any food functions going on. It actually happened the day before our emergency training that we were doing, and then the day that we were doing our emergency training, we were going to be cooking food for staff, and there we ended up ordering pizzas instead. But we basically had a breaker go bad, and the breaker has a shunt on it, and so it's not something you could just pick up off the shelf. So the vendor who should have normally performed the maintenance couldn't get anyone here for 2 weeks, so they approved B&S Plumbing to come out and B&B Foods to do the repairs for us. So we ended up having to get a new breaker overnighted to us, and then we had a gas relay board needed to be replaced too, because without power you have no gas in the kitchen, and then something was wrong with the relay board, so we actually had two things malfunction at the same time. So we actually purchased an extra breaker. We have 2 extra breakers that are on shelf in case this happens again. We can't be out of business for 2 days. We sat in my office brainstorming, okay, how do we make food for the next big event? Because we had an event coming in that following day, so we had to get up and running, and we were basically talking about what kitchens can we go to prepare, the food that we needed, to get that going. So one of those situations we don't want to run into again. For sales and marketing, during the month of, I should say June, or July instead of June, but they contracted 21 definite events totaling $75,000 in revenue, which will bring about 178 room nights. 2 of these events were in the month for the month bookings, so short-term business. 3 events booked will take place in 2023, so it's that future book that we're looking for, that longer-term, larger business. And the groups that booked that far out were Junior Department Club Cotillion, Indiana Association for Institutional Researchers, which I believe was a lead that came from St. Mary's of the Woods, and then the Indiana Railroad. And our team's currently working 40 leads and repeat business for 2022 and future years, totaling almost $300,000 in potential revenue and 776 estimated hotel room nights. And we have 11 contracts that are out, totaling about 80,000 in revenue and 600 hotel room nights. Site tours that we had this past month were the First Tee organization came out looking to do like a small golf tournament, and they ended up holding a board meeting here as well. Terre Haute Electrical, ISU Communications Department, and the Indiana State Police. There were 27 proposals that were sent out this past month, so almost a proposal a day was going out, so which is really good. Community involvement, we have some folks on our team that are involved with Downtown Terre Haute Advisory Board, CBB Tourism Commission, and 4-H. And then as far as promotions and advertising, we had a nice write-up in the West Vigo Times. Pam, our Director of Sales and Marketing, did a tour and interview with their writer. We've had a lot of open positions postings that we've been trying to push out through newspaper and Facebook. And Pam exhibited in the she represented Terre Haute and as a destination in the Indiana Society of Association Executives Annual Conference and Trade Show. So that was a 3-day conference that she was at. We're pushing advertising right now for Book Your Holidays, so we're starting to get some inquiries on holiday parties now as well. And continued Facebook postings, and then our CVent retargeting campaign is still ongoing. And then this just kind of shows some analytics of what some of our posts are, how many people they reach, who some of our followers are. Right now, we're followed mostly by women, and the age group is on average, between 35 and 54 is the highest demographic age range that is following us on Facebook. So it's really kind of interesting. So it kind of tells us like who should we be targeting, with some of our advertising. And these were just some of our Facebook posts that we had this past month. We posted about Mary Kramer's retirement. Dawn, our maintenance guy, had a birthday, so we all celebrated his birthday during a staff meeting. And Brady was one of the judges out at the fair for the 4-H for the computer and electronic categories. It's kind of fun. And then our statistics. So this kind of shows you, where we are in terms of business for 2022. And this would be from the middle of July on. We have 31 definite events, bringing almost 400 room nights in gross revenue, a little over 180,000. We have 7 contracts out for this year still, which will bring 280 room nights and almost $30,000 in revenue. And then we've got 18 proposals that are still out, bringing a little over $100,000 in revenue. In 2023, we have 10 definite contracts so far that will bring 650 hotel room nights and $132,000 in gross revenue. And then we've got 3 contracts that are sent, waiting for those to come back. And then we have 19 proposals that are out. And then 2024, if you look down a little further, you can see we're already starting to work on 2024 business, which is really great, getting back to that 24-month time frame. So total funnel, what's in our funnel from the middle of July all the way out to 2024, we've got $694,000 in business that's sitting in there. And that's it. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, let me ask one
Yes.
question. Neil, a lot of the municipal related groups hold conventions. Have you reached out to like AIM, which is the cities and towns, the Association of Indiana Counties, the assessors, the clerks? I mean, they all have their own organizations that have a date or sometimes multiple days.
Probably not all of them. I know that we have, there's several that we are working with. Association of Counties is one of those that, I think that's the one that you're attached to, right? That we're working with. There's a few of them that we're working with, but I know there's more that we can reach out to. So if there's a way to find a list of.
List of the ones I'm aware of.
Oh, great, that would be great. Yeah.
Ron, just FYI, we're not big enough to hold that AIM conference.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we need
Okay.
about 700 hotel rooms.
Right.
So, that's a tough one. The ICOM's coming next year, the Indiana Conference of Mayors, so I just talked to them again, they're gonna be calling, but next August, we'll have 80 or 90 mayors here for 3 days. So, so we are kind of connected there a little bit. Chris is working on the county part, I was working on the
Just the
municipal part.
Municipal Lawyers Association has a 2-day conference.
there's-
They try to move that around, so
There's a whole bunch of them.
I'll send what I know of to Neil.
Yeah.
For follow-up.
And if we know who to send, an email to through the county or something, what I've done in the past in some of my other buildings is we've reached out and we've had folks like send us emails, hey, here are the groups that we belong to, but it's just knowing how do we get that to the department so that they can tell us who, and then we'd love for them to be an ambassador to help try to bring that business here.
Right. Board have any questions? Thank you, Tennille.
Thank you.
All right, 7.2 under old business, our agenda is an update on the project and operating budget, Baker Tilly's Terre Haute answer.
So, Jason and Kyle could not be here today, so they apologize for that. I think the biggest thing to focus on in the budget is the far right line, amount remaining to be spent. As far as I'm concerned from a finance perspective, I think Brian Coister would agree the convention center is done. I don't think there's any more work to happen here. All we have left is just the Larry Bird Museum. So today we paid a pretty significant size bill. If you go down to building signage at $278,000, that's actually maybe gonna have about $20,000 left in that if we paid a bill this morning. So anything that's amount remaining to be spent really can just be pushed on to the Larry Bird Museum. Because, you know, this project is complete, Neil's working, everything's good with the convention center. So, you know, the budget really hasn't changed in a couple of months, maybe 3 months, actually. Everything's remained the same. So it's actually kind of my recommendation that we let Baker Tilly kind of back off of this. After talking to Terry Connolly and a couple others, we would like for them to continue to give us a comparison budget and actual expenses for the museum. Having this big full document, I don't think really is necessary anymore. So if you guys are okay with that, I'd like to, you know, move forward with just having maybe something for the museum, moving forward. And other than that, there's really no changes.
And the cash flow still.
Cash flows, yeah, absolutely.
So are we gonna move those remaining balances over there then?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Show it on the report that way?
Yeah, talk to President Marble after this.
Okay.
See what it is,
So they would just be preparing the cash flow, they would not be doing the budgeted this report?
but- Yep. And then
Except for the
it's-
museum.
Yeah, just for the museum.
Okay.
Yep.
Because maybe if you want to point out, are you going to get to this?
Cash flows.
Yes.
Well, go ahead if you want to say
No, I'm just, wasn't sure if you were wrapping up or if you were gonna go to this.
No, I was just gonna talk about the food and beverage tax, money. I still can't believe, our July month, $312,000. I don't know what happened in July for folks to wanna eat out or go to the bars or whatever they're doing, but that was a huge month for us, our biggest month, I
I
believe.
think probably about 2 months behind. That would've been the revenue
May.
from May
Yeah.
and Memorial Day.
Chris, we had the biggest April in my 28 years.
Really?
So I think that's reflected in part of that too. And I think it's gonna scare you what September, October, November would be. I think 316 will look like a distant memory. That's my hope, so.
It's awesome. So Terry, I know there's something you wanna ask, you better tell me.
That's all where what we were projecting at 250, we're surpassing by 75,000 to 100,000, most likely over the next few months.
You know, something I was gonna suggest, those cash flow statements, just include the funds that are on the auditor's books. I would think it would be beneficial if you would incorporate that operating fund that you guys are managing also in those statements.
In the food and beverage fund or?
Well, the statement that you get, that cash flow projection that you're getting from Baker Tilly,
Yep.
that is only the 4 funds that we manage it. And then there's another fund that they manage, that they pay operating expenses out of, the operating, the revenue from this place and food and beverage and everything, labor, all that.
It is, they do have cash flowed out the operating account, the transfer.
That's it.
It is it is
That's
projected out.
what we write, the check that we write to subsidize that account. But you don't have any detail on what the revenue is and what the expenses are that are being generated by operations.
It's a separate report.
Is that something you
That's
guys
a
already
separate
prepare?
report to Neil.
And you submit to the finance committee?
Is that what this is?
That's those
Yeah.
are our end of month packets. And so now we're all caught up. Yeah.
So you're suggesting it be compiled into
I think we're
one
supposed to have
for easier review?
Yeah, it'd be good consolidating the whole operation.
Or just the finance committee?
That'd be kind of difficult, I mean, this is
Isn't here?
multiple pages.
Yeah, there it is, okay, all right.
I guess just whatever, two bank accounts. Yeah, we have two bank accounts. Martel can speak to that.
Yeah, there's the advanced deposit account that we hold all of the future bookings that Tennille was reporting on. We retain those in a separate account until the event takes place. That way, if there is a situation and, you know, there is money refunded, we have somewhere we need to go to get that money back to the client. And then we also have our regular operating account, which is all of the revenue from the POS systems to the parking garage and in between, and all the expenses, that comes out of the regular operating account. So we have two accounts at First Financial right now.
And just as a refresher, excuse me, those two accounts are part of their agreement. And then the operating account is the one that we concluded and put in the agreement that there's a $400,000 balance, at all time minimum balance. So if it goes below that, that's what you replenish on a monthly basis.
So our cash flow just nets out what the convention center does. So it's just one line item that is netting out receipts and so you're not gonna see the receipts, but in the pre-opening and operating account transfer, that's a net number.
That you all concluded that,
Yeah.
and you can always change that, but you concluded that some months ago, when we talked about how this would be reported, that the finance committee would get all these details, but I see they get there anyway. I'm not opposed to a consolidation of some sort, but it's up to you all.
So, and if you just want those like packets to go to the finance committee, we can do that. I just wasn't sure, so I can give it to all of.
I think
all of
everybody
the
would like
board.
to see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's good.
You know, another thought on the food and beverage, and Jim and I have talked about this for years with regards to the innkeeper's tax. As we move forward, that food and beverage tax, you really need to look at it over about a 16-month period, because there is that lag. And so, you know, if you think July was the month, it's really partially in front of that. And so, you know, 5 years down the road, if you're looking how things are going, I would tell you 16 months is really the best way to look at that, so, for what that's worth.
If I can add one more item, the food and beverage tax, we have to watch it like a hawk, because the legislature last year almost repealed them all, and they just keep coming back for them. It's because of some local abuses someplace, and then somebody gets a burn on it, and came pretty close last year to being repealed. Of course, it'd be a disaster.
And so, yeah, Jason and I talked about that on Friday. So in that situation, if it gets repealed, what happens?
It's a disaster for you all,
Yeah,
so
we'll have to make it.
yeah.
That's
The
right.
repercussions is a disaster.
Well, and it's
your cash flow.
It's the lodging tax too that they're looking at, so that would devastate the convention tourism bureau.
We go to court.
Yeah. I think your point is well taken, Brian. I've heard those rumors, and, like continuing rumors that, you know, some will bring it back again this next session, so we'll have to be on top of that.
And so, you know, I wanna say again, I wasn't here or part of this project at the beginning, but, you know, Bernice, you were a part of this, Mayor, Dave, John, all you guys. I think we were one of the last counties to get a food and beverage tax.
You are.
So, appreciate all the work from the community, and, you know, wanna say to the naysayers, here we are. You know, a very successful convention center, and food and beverage is holding strong, and that's not just our folks paying that tax, that is people from out of county paying that tax, even out of state really. So, I think this has been successful, will continue to be successful.
How do we know, Jim, when it gets below the 400? And does Martel call you and say, we need $100,000 back in the fund, or?
It's their monthly report, has that line item in it, and says where they are and what needs to be transmitted, correct? Can you point out where that
Well,
is?
I invoice the CIB.
Gotcha.
I invoice the CIB with the P&L expenses, and then any capital expenditures or pre-opening expenditures that we spent, I invoice them and they transfer. in
And
their
this month,
finance.
we didn't have a need for a transfer.
There's a request.
And does that then come before the finance committee, or is it just an automatic transfer?
No, it comes before the finance committee as an approval on the checks.
I'd like to make one suggestion really quick. I think the CIB needs to explore like hiring contractual service to do invoices and things like that, instead of relying on, I should say relying, but my administrative assistant does it all right now, she's not compensated for it. So if we're not gonna pay her for it, I think we should consider maybe somebody like Zach Ryder who does solid waste or something like that. Just a suggestion. We can talk about that later.
Service.
It's not that Tammy's opposed to doing it, but she has a lot on her plate as well, so. She came to work at almost 6:45 this morning to finish up all this stuff, so.
Well, as the finance chair, you want to put together some proposals for us to consider.
I will, I just.
I understand your point.
Chris, can I remind you of one other thing?
Sure.
That is, there was a proposal about a year and a half ago to add to the salary resolution of the county, and it is stipend for an administrative assistant for this group, and the plan was for that to be payment, maybe somebody else.
Yeah.
Can't supplement her without it being in the ordinance, so that's just an option.
It's just, that has become very, difficult to get
Yeah.
accomplished, so.
Sounds easy.
Yeah. Okay, that's it, John, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Chris. Item 7.3, an update on the Larry Bird Museum. Terry Conley?
Yes, we have Brian Koistra here. Brian, you wanna give us an update on your construction progress?
Sure. Excuse me. Work continues on schedule.
Oh, wait a minute, where are the pictures at?
No pictures, no pictures. It's all here, it can be seen. We are, I think today, starting drywall finishing. They were gonna start yesterday, as Tennille mentioned, we're working around her schedule, so, should start finishing drywall today. Probably about 2 weeks worth of that, and then we'll be ready for paint, which should be honored before, September 12th. That work will start. Week, maybe 2 weeks worth of paint. Then we'll be ready for the unistrut structure that goes in, below the roof to support, various exhibits, lights, things of that nature. You can see the barricade up in the hallway, cutting the opening for the new door. And everything's on track to wrap up mid to late October, so. Foresee no issues. Got a couple material deliveries coming. The electrical panel, should arrive, I think it's the 29th of this month. And then we've got the bus duct, which is a way of distributing power for the lighting system, which comes early October. So, don't foresee any issues, and, I think it's gonna be wrapped up and sitting there for a little bit before some of the exhibits are ready. So, we're, just working around Tennille's schedule, and, if it takes a few days longer, so be it, but I think we'll wrap up as we originally planned.
I'd like to mention that some of the work that they're doing is part of the design work. The busing and the lighting system is actually part of that design work. So it doesn't feel that we have a lot of design work going into it, but that's exactly what they're wrapping up as far as what's going to be behind the drywall or housing the lighting.
Yeah, so when we get done, just to manage expectations, you'll walk in, The ceiling, all the walls will be painted, there will be no flooring on the floor. There'll be house lights, but no exhibit lights hung. All the doors will be installed, window tinting will be installed on all of the glazing. There'll be a glass vestibule that is just inside of this entrance off of, just to the east of the main entrance. That will be in place. And that's really the extent of the work. So it'll look like a warm lit shell without any flooring in it. It'll just be a concrete slab.
The flooring is part of the design company's plan. We, as Brian is finishing up that shell, the museum committee has been working with Hilferty, meeting on a regular basis to go over final design. At this point, what we're trying to wrap up is our audio-visual photography. Shelley, I don't know if you want to give an update on any of the objects and what you're working on.
Currently looking into trying to restoration services for some of the artifacts and trophies and stuff that we have that over time they've been on display, so they're kind of seeing the typical wear and tear and discoloration just from the lighting and the environment that they were in. So looking into the restoration for those, get them up and ready to where they can just be displayed and nice and shiny and pretty and look like they're supposed to. Also in contact with a photographer who is going to be assisting with some of the images that we've been looking for to kind of fill in some of the gaps to tell some of their story. So, moving on.
Surely it is. Brian Bosma is also working on securing some loan agreements and making those contacts, as well as maybe some of Larry's later years. Do you have anything you want to add, Brian?
No, I just sent that yesterday, so I don't know about it.
Yeah, but Brian is working on that, and then Mark Madursky is working with interviewing some people as well, and hopefully we would really like to have Hilferty finish up the final design so we can send out RFPs or at least an estimate package within the next 60 days. That is a goal, not concrete, but definitely a goal if we still intend for the museum to open next year. That's my report.
It's like holding teeth over there.
The design is fabulous. It will be very much an attraction for this city.
Okay, thank you. And now, under old business, an update on legal matters. Brian Bosman.
Thank you, John. Been helping Terry and along with Brian Quistron and the museum working group to sort of write her on the folks that are involved in the design. Brian and I sort of commiserated about it as a couple of engineers. It's more art than it is science, and it's difficult to get the artists to put into concrete what they don't have in their hands. Okay, I think that's the best way to say it. So they want to see the exact picture before they can, approve a design for the case. They need to. We're just continuing to work hard to try to motivate them, and Terry has done a great job on that. So we'll continue that work, and then we're exploring, despite obstacles, obtaining rights to images, including the ones that Ms. Keena's has located, which we feel good about that we'll be able to use. This involves just to give you a little flavor for it. If somebody takes a picture and they had a ticket, you got to determine what the ticket terms were when they took the picture, because most tickets provide for non-commercial use of any photography. If you have a picture of Larry with Magic Johnson, well, not only do you have to get Larry's permission, but you gotta get Magic Johnson's permission too, under some circumstances. So there'll be some challenges in putting all this together, but we're trying to work through those. And I'll be circulating to the committee, one of my partners put together a short memorandum on some of the rights that are involved, so we all understand those. So I'll circulate that after I review one more time. One item on my continued list are the easements here. Those go both ways with the property owners. We need to both extend and receive easements, so it's not like we're over a barrel, it's just getting a property owner group to acknowledge that they need to get this done, rather than just saying, we'll get it done at some point. Fortunately, they're also seeking a parking agreement, which won't become before this board over my dead body until we get the easement thing done, because it's the oldest thing on my things to do list. So Tennille's had some conversations on that, and she will chat just a little bit about that after the meeting. One thing to remind you, I maintain a pretty much an indexed copy of everything that this board has ever approved. So for instance, Tammy yesterday emailed that the State Board of Accounts wanted a copy of Garmon's complete contract executed, which wasn't easily locatable. I have it and sent it instantaneously. So if there's something you want or you need, just send me an email or call my cell or whatever, and we'll get it to you. I did update your books, which I see only Terry has been faithful in organizing herself with a new index of all the resolutions that had been adopted by the CIB. Updated, I handed out updated contact list for your consultants, removing the ones that you're not consulting with anymore, like CSO and Nations Group. And
Emily, I did see Emily's was on her desk this morning.
oh,
So,
it gives
not
me
just-
great pleasure to know that. And I distributed a complete book to the new member and new committees, and also new terms, because Bernice steps into Steve's term, so it's shortened. So it's just to remind you all that those appointments have to happen. That, we answer questions all hours of the day, as John would attest, and our answer legal technical.
Will you send out the new term sheet? I didn't see that.
Sure.
Or the list of members and terms, do you have that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did I not get that? I didn't.
You did it, it's okay. I'll send it again.
Here, if you just take this, I can print it.
It's attached in an email.
Yeah, I sent an email with 3 or 4 things. Actually, it also had the agenda in it, so you may have overlooked it.
I did,
Yeah.
I just have the agenda, okay.
Yes, it was the second agenda
Okay.
that I sent out, which would have been on Monday, maybe it could be, maybe here. Yeah, no problem. Good.
Mayor, Denise, any questions of council? None? Chris? Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Item number 8 is new business, and 8.1. Approval to proceed with an RFP process for a feasibility study proposed athletic/water park project. And it's brought to the board by one of the board members, Mayor Bennett. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I gave everybody a copy of this to what I'm going to talk from today, so I guess I'll give you just a little bit of background. As one of the READY grant proposals, we've done several community feedback sessions over the last few years in a variety of capacities to find out the things that needed to go in our community plan, and obviously related to tourism, quality of life, infrastructure, those pillars. One of the things that continued to come up from people was a water park related facility. That was very, very common. But we also had numerous people ask us about creating a athletic complex similar to most other communities in Indiana. Nothing on the scale of Grand Park, like in Westfield, and that's not what the intent is, but to create a place to host tournaments and a variety of sports-related activities. And then the other piece of this, hopefully a single complex of a larger water park facility that would not only be used by local folks, but bring tourism to our community. And so as we worked through the Ready Grant process, a lot of us elected officials, obviously it was a multi-county proposal, we wanted to make that part of it because it fit the criteria of the Indiana Economic Development Commission. These kinds of projects is right up their alley. And so the Regional Development Authority for our county area here, chaired by Greg Good from Indiana State University, included that. Fortunately, we were able to convince them to include that, and the IEDC approved it. And so they feel it once again, it confirms it's a fit with their funding source. And so they provided $50,000 to the CIB. They ran it through the CIB because it is will be a city, county, and tourism-related, Convention Tourism Bureau funded project. And so the perfect place that made sense to start it at would be with the CIB. Following the requirements of IEDC, we have to go out and do a feasibility study. We requested that. We wanted that for the community, but we have to follow their procurement process to do that. So RGL Solutions, who's one of our partners already, will prepare an RFP that'll be targeted to groups that specifically design athletic facilities and or a separate one, or if we find one that does both, water parks. So we want to look at this from a perspective. They've been involved with ones that have been built. They know the market, the regional area that we'll be tapping into, and put the feasibility study to see if it makes sense for Terre Haute and Vigo County to support one of these, just like the 2 feasibility studies we did for the convention center. This will be that same kind of a process. And so what the new projects committee has never met before, so we'll begin to meet here, pending board action to move this process to the next step. But now we're beginning to think beyond the convention center about what comes next from a CIB perspective. What I've recommended here is that that process where RGL Solutions would develop the RFP for us and they would market the RFP, and then the new projects committee then would review those RFPs and then bring them back to the board. So the only action we're looking for today, that I'm looking for on behalf of the new projects committee, is to approve moving forward with the process. Then when the RFP is completed and we have a more formal timeline, I've provided a timeline here for you how we think it'll shake out, but the board would need to approve the RFP itself and then go to work with, getting responses back and selecting a potential vendor. There's a 2-to-1 match for this $50,000. There'll be no cost to the CIB at this point. There would only be a cost when you pay a consultant to do the actual feasibility study. If we're able to get all of the projects and ready, moving along and the private funding coming to that, there may be no cost to the CIB at the end because of the way the matches work. But there could be a small cost. So there won't be any at this point. We'll develop the RFP and we'll send it out. And then if we select one of those, then we'll talk about that contract and what the cost would be. It'll be fairly minimal. We expect the total cost of this to be about $50,000 or $60,000-ish. That's what kind of the going rate is. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but that's what we're looking at as a total cost. So I'm recommending that we do this. We need to stay on track. There's going to be another round of ready grants in the next legislative session. Everything that we do today to prepare us and get most of the things moving with the current ready grant proposals will help us get additional funding in this next round. We'll hopefully know what that is at the state level, the total dollar amount by April when they complete the legislative session. and then the IEDC will start that next process again sometime after that. So we want to be in a great position to be able to ask for additional funding in the next round for a potential project if this feasibility study shows us that that's the right thing to do. So, having said that, I guess I would entertain any questions about the process or the Ready Grant or anything else, or thoughts about this and being connected with the CIB and anything and everything, I guess, for the board.
Mayor, I'm in favor of moving forward with this, but can you explain the funding side of Ready? So as I understand it, we have this $20 million, and they're gonna look at the match of the full 20 million.
So there's, in that $20 million, there's 4-to-1 matches, 3-to-1 matches, 2-to-1 matches. And so it depends on whether you're a government entity, private sector proposal, not-for-profit. In our case, we're considered a government, so that's a 2-to-1 match. And so that means we could conceivably have to be at the 100, the total would be 150,000. We would provide 100,000 and they provide 50,000. So most likely this will come in at, let's just say $60,000 or $70,000. Then the match would be a reduced amount from the 50,000, and we would make up, the difference. So, but if you get the private match money in, it takes care of most of the matches for government, not-for-profit, where we don't have to actually pay anything out. But we won't know until these projects are funded. It's complicated. The IEDC put something together that's wonderful. It's very difficult to deal with their rules and regulations. So you don't know exactly what it is until you do it, but you know what their maximum contribution will be from the state's perspective.
Okay, thank you.
And there'll be more of these to come with other things, whether the feasibility studies, the Children's Museum was awarded one the same way that want to do the project out here on 8th Street across the street. And it'll be the same thing for them. So, they'll have to come up with their match money, but it won't cost, the feasibility study won't be near what the total match would be. There's no way you're gonna spend that much money on a study.
I only have one question, and I know what the answer is, but just to make it clear for the board, this does fit within our guidelines.
It does, tourism. Capital projects for tourism.
And in the discussions with the IEDC, they felt that way too, because we had to go through and explain who's gonna fund a potential project and all that, and it made it very easy for them to approve our project because it fits into the CIB model.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we could, try to get a motion to move the process along, and then we'll begin to have RGL Solutions be a part of communicating this in each meeting as we move forward.
Anyone want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to proceed on with the RFP process.
I'll
Is there a
second.
I'll second. I'll second.
It's, motion's been made and seconded. Do we need a roll call vote?
You don't, because everybody's present here. Which one?
All those in favor of moving this process along, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we have a few other projects that are being born, so to speak. And I just want to make sure that the museum stays on target and with the funding. No.
I do not at this time foresee any issues with where our budget is on the museum, what's remaining, and where we are.
Okay.
So I agree with you. The timeline is going to be our hurdle. But as far as the budget and cost, I feel, as far as being on the committee, I feel that that is something that we will continue to stay on top of.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I left one thing out in my little report. talked about by the museum working group is Wilfred is going to be proposing at some point an RFP for AV production purposes. So we said we work with them to make that happen when they're ready, instead of Boston. Well, that needs to be going straight.
It's more of a, I don't know if it's as you put it, as a service, that they would be using.
I'm sorry, I've conflated two different things. So the AV is a service.
Correct.
There will be an RFP at some point for the fabrication.
Fabrication and
Sorry.
installation will
Conflate
be,
those two.
correct, will
Yeah.
be, and again, I would hope to have those in, within, 60 to 90 days. Our goal is 60 days to at least begin the RFP process. That's, yeah, one of the things, and where Brian's going, just to clarify. So in the museum, obviously, there is a lot of footage of Larry Bird that we want to display. And we have to have those copyrights, but we also have to have it, a plan for it. So Hilfrey has worked with several audio-visual producers, so that is within the scope and within their wheelhouse and within their budget that they have set aside for audio-visual. So it's not anything outside of the budget. They actually have a company that they work with in Boston, of all places, where obviously correlates really well with Larry's time when he was with the Boston Celtics. So that's where, that was something that we'll have, but that's still probably 30 to 60 days out from knowing what they can do for Hilfrey. So just for himself, that we're not in the last call.
Okay. Thank you. Item 9, other business. Are there any questions or comments from the board members?
I
Mayor?
got just one quick thing. Last October, this board approved funds for the wayfinding project with the 4140 group, the local arts group. And I've received the invoice now that I just emailed to you, Jim, that we need to pay. It's taken a while to work through logistics of where these wayfinding signs will be placed downtown in the right of way, and primarily on the sidewalks and the back edge of that, things like that. So they've been working through that with their engineer architect that they have working for Arts of Leanna. And they're getting ready to go to the Board of Public Works to approve these locations. It's pre-approved, but it'll be officially approved by the Board of Works. But I've got the invoice that we need to pay that. I don't remember the exact figure. We need to double check that, which I'm trying to give us a resolution, exactly which one that was. I can't remember the exact figure that we approved, but that's what the bill needs to be cut at, whatever that amount compared to this. It's $82,160 or something. I don't know if that matches up dollar for dollar. I know it's probably within.
Close.
Yeah, I just can't remember the exact figure. It was 82 something. So, but whatever we approve, that's what the amount will be, and I'll make up any difference to the city if there's even a dollar difference. We'll do. But I'd ask that, just reminding the board that we approved that previously. We just now received the invoice, and those signs hopefully will go in this fall. They're very nice. And they're wayfinding for people to find a variety of downtown destinations, including the convention center.
And that is also under statutory authority wayfinding specifically.
Right. That's why I wrote here. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ladies? Right, our next regular board meeting will be September the 28th here in the Convention Center Boardroom, 2022, at 9 o'clock. Again, welcome Bernice.
Thank you.
Very good to have you on board. And if there's nothing further, we're adjourned.